So Totem is it a debut? It's not.
Second
Second
film by
film,
Lila
sophomore
Aviles.
film which is a Mexican film. I thought it was Spanish. More for
Yeah.
me, it is a Mexican film.
That's because I said it was Spanish, so
yeah.
more fool me.
But it's speak the same language, and it's shot in a sort of this intimate, over the shoulder, this kind of evocation of intimacy in a house in the lead up to a birthday. So it has a kind of festin, Thomas Vinterberg kind of feeling to it. This is again quite a morbid film in some senses. The sort of the main character is really this young girl, sort of, and her mum, who we first meet on their way to the party, and we find out that the young girl's dad is dying. So he's got a fatal disease, I think something like leukemia or something, and he's very wasted and has a full-time living carer, and he's sort of preparing himself for this birthday party that he knows will be his final birthday party. He's young, he's 27 years old, and so we're introduced to this kind of chaotic, this very like Alexei Goranman style apartment. There's bodies everywhere. There's no privacy. People are kind of like shitting and pissing and showering with everyone just running into the room. So it has this real corporeality to it, and it's very, I think, it's not frictionless. This party, there's emotions are running high. Characters are getting drunk. Arguments spill out. There's misunderstandings. So it creates this very kind of rich, textured portrait of family life, which I found really compelling, very beautiful and very real in a sense. Even though it was very strange, there's kind of interesting devices, like the father has his no larynx anymore, so he has to use one of these voice boxes, and it kind of adds this element of kind of quirky, Lynchian, dirty weirdness to the proceedings, in what would otherwise be quite a straight-faced story of this quite somber melodrama, or quite manipulative melodrama about a dying man. Turns into actually quite a weird evocation of the end of life, and it becomes quite celebratory of life in its scrappiness, I thought.
Yeah, the bittersweet tone is sustained throughout, and kind of intensifies actually. I think it's a very colourful film, a very beautiful, rich film, just visually. It's shot in a style that I'm sometimes wary of, but I think it comes off totally well.
It works here because it matches
has this floaty, over-the-shoulder vibe. It's told not entirely, but almost entirely from the perspective of this very young girl.
In that it was like Playground.
What's her name? Sol. Sol is the name of the girl. Solicito.
It reminded me of Playground in that sense.
Playground, very good.
Seeing we're often at kid height. We're seeing the parents' knees and bums and things like that, and it's I think it was quite
Tom and Jerry angle.
No. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And also at times these these quite sublime moments where we focus on various creatures and animals, and there'll be a cricket or a bug or a parrot, and we go very, very close to them. Sometimes the kids are kind of poking them or regarding them or something, and sometimes not. There'll be a snail on a leaf. And we get these little, they're almost like these little interstitial moments of exotic elsewheres, I suppose, that are quite interesting, and they're not explained or rendered. They don't need to be. They're just part of this noisy, messy, rotting, organic living house, I think, is part of the tent with those, and I really liked that.
It's beautiful, and very, the sound mix as well sort of totally relates this. I thought it was very moving. I don't think we won't dwell on it for terribly long.
Yeah,
it's
fine.
Basically just a great film. I saw it. I didn't see it at Berlin. It was at the Berlin that we were at, but I caught it at one of the special presentations that they had at London Film Festival, and the director was there, and she was an absolute charmer. She gave a kind of rip-roaring intro, very brief, and then answered questions at the end. There was one question from the audience that irked me so violently. It was from a woman who said, "I'm a filmmaker. And I just wanted to know the performances you got, British filmmaker, from these children was so intimate. I was wondering whether you had an intimacy director on set," which just the most extraordinary suggestion. I mean, there weren't any sex scenes, by the way, which is the only use there is for intimacy coordinators, which is, I assume, what she was referring to. But very kind of bizarre that she would think that. I mean, that it wasn't the director's job.
It just goes to show like
spontaneous performances from kids, and also kids are actually. I don't have a huge amount of experience directing kids myself, but like they perform well. And the answer that she gave was like, they basically did it. Like they basically just like, and you work with their energy. They're not as good at like giving you a particular thing each time, but like by working with the energy of these very young people, the film gains its own energy. And I think that's something very important.
Quite a charitable answer considering the stupidity of the question.
No, of course, you should have just walked off stage.
Imagine asking someone like Jerzy Skolimowski probably.
Yeah,
punched him.
If it had been Pedro Costa's famous for just giving very short answers. I was watching a Pedro Costa Q&A last night actually on YouTube, and he said this amazing thing about how
it's very terse, isn't he? Yeah.
One of his films he made called Bones, which was I think the first Fontaine-Hash film. He was very concerned that that all the interesting stuff was happening behind the camera or left or right, not where the camera was pointing. And he says you've always got to make sure that the camera equipment isn't too unwieldy or the set isn't too slow, that you can't suddenly move around and capture the thing that's most interesting. And I felt that Totem managed to achieve capturing the most interesting.
It does what this camera technique or this modality of filmmaking is supposed to do, which is it's supposed to make you feel like you're there.
Yeah,
that's really that is what this camera technique is for. So, lots of people use it. Our director's always aware that that's why it's what it's for. It's to make you feel like you're in this space and you can.
It was immersive, but it wasn't uncomposed. I suppose.
Yeah, no, it still found moments of to frame really interestingly. In this moment, I liked its controlled chaos. I like the fact that they light these lanterns and they go up, and then one of them bursts into flames because it hits a candle, and it just creates this kind of non-perilous chaos that kind of spills out. And there's some moments of interest, sort of strange intrigue in the film as well. This thing with these paintings that are getting shipped off.
Oh yeah. There's nice things that aren't tied up.
They're glanced at, and then
there's like sort of darkness running through it, and difficulty, and something that maybe in a Robin Östlund film would sort of become a real kind of like would really feel like stepping barefoot on some Lego, but actually. In this film, the kind of middle class angst is just like ambient, and like you're more drawn.
We experience it as a child.
Yeah, you're more drawn towards the like playful aspects, the aspects that someone who doesn't have adult responsibilities would notice. And I think that's quite a beautiful approach. It's a childlike film about childhood, but about being a child and dealing with something that
really momentous,
grown up and really painful.
Yeah, so good. Great film.
Totem. Go see it. It is going to be released. I'm going to start, when I like a film, I'm going to start being a bit evangelical.
We should.
Because Lila Aviles reminded me of this box office quirk, which is that if you don't see a film on its opening weekend, then it's sort of unlikely to, be booked for even if you do,
they judge by that opening weekend.
Exactly. So see it in December on the opening weekend. It's distributed by New Wave Films.